Fresh concerns today for young Australian men, the biggest users of online gambling services, and loopholes in regulations that could allow them to fall deep into debt by gambling with credit. Carol Bennett is Chief Executive of the Alliance for Gambling Reform and joins us now. Carol, thanks for joining us at midday. Now, there are already restrictions on using credit cards for gambling online. What are these loopholes?
Look, the Alliance for Gambling Reform has done research that shows that access to credit significantly increases harm from gambling. We know that Australians are the biggest losers in the world when it comes to gambling, and we know that access to credit is a significant factor in increasing harm. And people who use credit, people who are harmed most, are actually those who are 4 times more likely to experience, to have been using credit. We know that there are loopholes. For example, clubs, casinos, licensed venues, TABs, they're not supposed to be allowing gambling to be facilitated by credit, but we know that people access credit regardless. If I go into a casino, I can go to an ATM and access cash, and I can use that to gamble. So credit is readily available, and we simply don't have the controls in place that keep it in check.
Carol, gambling reform is shaping up as an issue in the upcoming New South Wales election. The state is home to half of the country's poker machines. So why is New South Wales key to the whole country's approach to gambling reform?
Well, look, we know that gambling is a big issue in Australia. Australians are the biggest losers when it comes to gambling, as I said, and we know that the community is now very well understanding that gambling harm is a big issue. And they want to see change. They want to see safeguards put in place so that people are not losing money they don't have, and they want to ensure that there are regulations in place, there is legislation in place, and there are safeguards in place, like the cashless card in New South Wales, that enable people to be protected from gambling-related harm. And we also experience the most significant harm in the world when it comes to gambling.
So are cashless gambling cards an answer here?
Look, cashless gambling is an answer, but we also know that a ban on credit is a significant factor. And in fact, in the UK and Germany, they've already done this. We're behind the 8 ball when it comes to these kinds of safeguards. Banning credit would significantly reduce gambling-related harm in Australia, and we know that all the research points to the fact that ready access to credit significantly increases that harm. So we want to see some significant changes when it comes to these sorts of things, and certainly with a cashless card should not enable people to access credit, and that's a key feature of that policy. So
with a cashless gambling card, you can top it up with credit. Is that what your concern is?
We're concerned that people can access credit to gamble, and yes, that you could actually use the card to do that. We want to see all lines of credit banned when it comes to gambling, so that people are not losing money that they don't have.
So if we just look at the cashless gambling card, clubs in New South Wales and other sectors are saying that it could cost them thousands of jobs and 30% actually of their revenue by setting limits. So are their concerns warranted?
Look, the concerns are warranted. What we've seen is the highest losses in the world. In New South Wales, we have more poker machines than any other place in the world, other than probably Las Vegas. That's the reality. We do need to see these safeguards in place. And we know the New South Wales Crime Commission in October last year produced a report showing widespread money laundering, crime, and harm related to gambling in New South Wales. And they recommended as their top recommendation that we have a cashless card. And we need that cashless card to have limits, default limits on what people can spend, like the Tasmanian model. We need it to ensure that people don't have access to credit, and we need to make sure it has all those things in place that will make it effective, because it cannot be voluntary, and we know that voluntary systems which have already been trialled extensively around the world simply fail. We need this to have teeth, we need it to be mandatory, and we need to ensure that credit is not readily available.
All right, Carol Bennett, thanks for joining us at midday.
Thanks, Narelda.
Coming up next.